or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. You're probably tuning in right now for the off-duty section of the Wall Street Journal. You can now tune into that a couple hours later at 8 p.m. We're now presenting the Jamestown Post-Journal on a regular basis, and this will be its home. Stay with us for the reading of this, and thanks for listening.
Hello, this is Dave, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from recent issues of the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Police release new Ellery Jane Doe information. In January, the Post-Journal retold the story of Ellery Jane Doe, a cold case that has been under investigation since December 6th of 1983. On Monday, there was a bit of movement on the case. The Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office said Monday it has received information of a possible sighting of Christopher Wilder in New York City on Sunday, December 4th, 1983, which the department is now following up on to see if there is a connection to Ellery Jane Doe. This date is 2 days before the body of Ellery Jane Doe was recovered on State Route 17 in the town of Ellery, the sheriff's office said in a statement. Christopher Wilde was suspected of committing a number of homicides in the United States, including the state of New York. On April 13, 1984, Wilder was killed in a gunfight with New Hampshire State Police, who had contacted him in a stolen vehicle which Wilder had taken following the murder of Beth Dodge in Victor, New York. A New Hampshire State Police officer was shot during the encounter with Wilder. The sheriff's office said that during the contact with a woman in New York City on December 4, 1983, the suspect used a ruse that Christopher Wilder commonly used to lure his victims into his vehicle. The woman did not agree to leave with the subject, believed to possibly be Wilder. The suspect was last seen leaving on foot. Christopher Wilder was known to frequent Western New York, and Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office would like to speak to anyone who believes they may have encountered Wilder in Western New York between Sunday, December 4th, 1983, and Tuesday, December 6th, 1983. Anyone with information about this case is asked to contact the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigation Division at 716-753-4578 or via email at tarpley@sheriff.us. On December 6, 1983, members of the Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation would set out to begin the usually scheduled early morning work along the former Route 17, now Interstate 86. The workers would stop about 1.5 miles eastward beyond the Chautauqua Lake Bridge. Snowfall had previously covered the area for about 2 days, but on this morning, a rainfall had mostly eliminated any snow that would remain. With the ground clear, workers noticed something strange in the ditch along the left side of the road at about 8:30 a.m. and approached to investigate. Without realizing it, the workers had just stumbled upon one of the greatest mysteries in Chautauqua County, which 42 years later remains shrouded in mystery as the day it was discovered. Upon approaching, the workers' fears were confirmed. They had just located a deceased body that appeared to have been disposed of along the side of the expressway. The body was lying face up, described as partially clad, and appeared to have possibly been the victim of a sexual assault as well. The woman appeared to be in her late 30s, according to reports, with estimates putting her age at between 30 and 37 years old at the time of death. The woman had 2 moles, one on her left cheek and a 15 millimeter raised one behind her left ear, along with a wart located above her left eyebrow. There was a T-shaped scar on the victim's neck, and her blood type was A+. According to reports, the woman was about 5 foot 4 inches and weighed about 128 pounds. The woman was found without any jewelry, identification, or even shoes. The only thing the woman seemed to carry on her was a mysterious note with 3 unidentified series of numbers and letters. Countless efforts to identify the woman have turned up nothing. No Interpol reports have shown matching descriptions for missing persons. DNA attempts have not yielded any conclusive results, yet no success was had in attempting to identify her through fingerprints, and nothing has come back as a match on her biometric data that numerous international missing persons groups have. With so many paths leading to dead ends, the case only continues to get colder and colder with time. The woman was almost immediately identified as a victim of a homicide. Investigators noted that it appeared that she had been shot 4 times, once in the back, twice in the chest, and once in the mouth. While investigators have stated that the shot inside the victim's mouth may allude to an execution-style killing, this explanation posed more questions. The victim wore a green, red, and brown checkered trench coat, which was reversible to an olive drab wool. She also wore a homemade plaid wool skirt and a blue-gray crew neck. Additionally, the victim wore a white V-neck camisole, something that was only available in Capri, Italy at the time. All of the clothing of the victim was wearing was considered to be of value, suggesting that the woman likely came from an upper-middle-class background. This further complicates the investigation by making one wonder why the woman had made her way so far. Despite large amounts of evidence suggesting European heritage, investigators believe the woman may have arrived in the United States from Canada. A note in the woman's pocket was found to be from the Blue Boy Motor Hotel, formerly located in Vancouver, Canada. The note contains 3 lines of text reading SASKRH 24233 KRBA 68301 Sarge 74261. There have been no successful attempts to decode what the note means, though it is believed to be transportation or contact information of some kind. Additionally, no employees of the Blue Boy Motor Hotel ever recall seeing a woman at the hotel, according to public reports. Chautauqua Chamber of kicks off Small Business Week with Swedish Sons Farms ribbon cutting. The Swanson family and local officials cut the ribbon at Swedish Farms official chamber ribbon cutting and grand opening this past Friday afternoon. From Clymer. The first full week of May is Small Business Week for Chautauqua County. While the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce will be visiting more than 500 small businesses throughout the week was officially kicked off on Friday afternoon in downtown Clymer at Swederson Farms. Swederson Farms held its grand opening weekend over the weekend, starting with the Chamber's ribbon cutting Friday afternoon. Owned by Carrie and Levi Swanson and their daughters Diana and Phoebe, Swederson Farms is located at 8723 East Main Street and offers a variety of different goods for people's kitchens. We actually began in 2023 online, Carrie Swanson said. Exclusively online, it started as, then we went to pop-up shops, vendor shows, and all that kind of thing. We did that for the last 3 years. Carrie Swanson said they found their new location on East Main Street back in November and have been working hard since to fix it up and turn it into their store. The name came from merging the Swanson last name with her maiden name, Peterson, and the farms came from both growing up on farms. Actually, we sell kitchen goods, Carrie Swanson said. So, utensils, gadgets, cutlery. We have cookware that we can order. We have lots of entertaining items. I hope you can stop in. Sweeterson Farms is also open online at sweeterson-farms.com, and their in-person hours are Wednesday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Carrie Swanson encouraged people to stop by not only their shop, but other local businesses as well, including Twin Flame Coffee Company that also opened downtown on Friday. Levi Swanson, who also sits on the town board, added his appreciation for everyone coming out to the ribbon-cutting event. I'm very proud to be here as a small business owner, he said. She used the word we quite often, which does a lot of heavy lifting, but it was actually Carrie. This has been her dream. She put in all of the work. I'm just Labor Levi, the walking billboard. I'm very proud of her and all the work she's done. Levi Swanson added that everything in the store is Carrie Swanson's handiwork, and that they are blessed to be able to open a small business in Clymer where they live and love. Deputy Town Supervisor Tan Coltsey was also in attendance, welcoming the new business to the business community. Assemblyman Andrew Molitor, along with Representative of Senator George Borrello, Congressman Nick Langworthy, and County Executive P.J. Wendell, also congratulated the Swanson family, reading proclamations from all of the offices for not only the business, but to recognize Small Business Week as well. Some items given a special shout-out as items that can be found in the store include a butter dish shaped like a whale, noted to be the item that got the store started, along with a crocodile chopper for vegetables. Everything is handpicked from the store by Carrie Swanson. The Swansons were also acknowledged and congratulated by the Small Business Development Center and the Chautauqua Chamber of Commerce before the ribbon was officially cut. More information can be on Sweeterson Farms can be found on their website, sweetersonfarms.com, along with social media on Facebook and Instagram. Here's a couple of small notes regarding the Kentucky Derby. In 1973, Secretariat won the Kentucky Derby, the first of his Triple Crown victories, in a time of 1 minute 59.4 seconds, a record that still stands. Of a personal note, this reader attended that race back in 1973 and camped outside of Churchill Downs. It was truly an enjoyable setting and experience. We hope that you will answer this question to yourself. Do you enjoy watching the Kentucky Derby? A new bill tries to increase illegal cannabis enforcement. State lawmakers are trying to give the State Office of Cannabis Management some of its teeth back as a court battle over the organization's enforcement power is waged in a state appeals court. Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes, Democrat Buffalo, and Senator Jeremy Cooney, Democrat Rochester, have introduced legislation codified into statute the general parameters under which the Office of Cannabis Management may conduct administrative inspections. The OCM has conducted administrative inspections under the guidelines this bill proposes. However, there is currently a court injunction in place against OCM, which has placed severe restrictions on their inspection capabilities, Peoples-Stokes and Cooney wrote in their legislative justification. The injunction is premised on the fact that OCM's procedures, while they do place guidelines on how inspections are conducted, are not codified into law. This bill will rectify that issue. The court case Peoples-Stokes and Cooney reference is known as Super Smoke and Save LLC et al. Versus New York State Cannabis Control Board et al. And centers on the search of 5 New York City area businesses and seizure of materials from those businesses. In January 2025, the state Supreme Court Justice Thomas Marcel ruled that Office of Cannabis Management searches of legal hemp shops in New York City constitute warrantless search and seizures in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Marcel ruled the New York City Sheriff's Office was barred from conducting warrantless searches of businesses that appear on the State Office of Cannabis Management's Director of Cannabinoid Hemp Retail Licenses maintained under the state's cannabis law, while also ordering anything seized as part of a warrantless search to be returned to the businesses. In short, while the Constitution okays warrantless searches in some situation, it never gives the go-ahead to unreasonable ones, Marcel wrote. Here, the searches' purpose and their manner of execution seem deeply removed from any reasonable administrative search. To begin, the purposes of the search related not to compliance with licensure, but discovery of contraband. While the subjective purpose for conducting a search or seizure is generally irrelevant to the search or seizure's constitutionality, is not always so. On the present early and incomplete record, the court is preliminarily convinced that the purpose of the respondent's inspection was to discover illicit contraband, not to obtain evidence of regulatory violations. The proof on this point, in the court's estimation, is beyond question. Marcel said in his ruling has no effect on the Office of Cannabis Management's ability to take actions against businesses with no licenses at all. One last comment needs to be made before moving to OCM's authority, Marcel wrote. It appears from the evidence that the vast majority of Sheriff's Office searches are directed at establishments without any licenses whatsoever, and nothing in this decision stops or prevents the Sheriff's Office from doing the bulk of its work within the confines of cannabis law. The state appealed Marcel's ruling in April 2025, while paperwork and some briefs have been filed as recently as this March in the 3rd Department Appellate Division. No decision has been reached. Despite Marcel's ruling that requiring wardens shouldn't affect most Office of Cannabis Management enforcement actions, People, Stokes, and Cooney disagree. Illicit and unlicensed operators undermine compliant businesses, evade regulatory requirements, and may sell untested or mislabeled products, People, Stokes, and Cooney wrote in their legislative justification. This legislation clarifies the scope of the Office of Cannabis Management's authority to conduct administrative inspection and seize unlawful products when probable cause exists, while also requiring that such actions be carried out reasonably and within the bounds of the regulatory framework. Clear statutory authority will strengthen enforcement efforts and support the integrity of the legal marketplace. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The Real Estate Investor Association of Jamestown, in cooperation with the Chautauqua County Board of Realtors, will host a town hall meeting for property owners, property managers, and realtors on May 12th at Wicked Warrens on 3rd Street. The forum will give property owners and managers and realtors a chance to receive clear, first-hand information about Chautauqua County Health Department lead rental registry program and the City of Jamestown's rental property registry. Official speakers include Anna Powell, Chautauqua County Health Department Childhood Lead and Healthy Homes Coordinator, and Crystal Surdick, City Development Director. Founded in Jamestown in 1970 by 5 local landlords, the Real Estate Investor Association, REIA, provides a forum for property owners and real estate professionals to connect, share information, and support reasonable rental housing practices. Today, REIA maintains 60 to 80 members, including property owners, property managers, and real estate professionals involved in buying, selling, and managing rental housing throughout Jamestown and surrounding areas. The May 12th Town Hall is designed to support open dialogue among key stakeholders, explain current requirements, and help attendees understand compliance, expectations, and available resources. County Lead Rental Registry. The Chautauqua County Health Department's Lead Rental Registry program establishes a proactive system aimed at identifying and mitigating lead hazards in rental housing to help reduce childhood lead exposure. All residential rental properties in the 14701 zip code containing 2 or more units constructed before 1980 must undergo inspections to ensure that they are free of lead hazards. Property owners are required to obtain a lead safety certificate for every rented unit. Any lead hazards that are identified must be addressed using lead-safe work practices and must be corrected promptly. Compliance will be monitored and enforced to prevent childhood lead poisoning and maintain safer housing conditions throughout the community. All residential rental properties in Jamestown must be registered. The registration will help the city address and enforce substandard housing laws, maintain current owner and property manager information, and build a database for emergency response, and to send important legal communication directly to the owner. Owners who did not register by August 1st, 2024 must do so now to avoid penalties. New property owners must register within 30 days of property transfer. All rental properties are subject to inspection within 90 days of ownership transfer. That inspection will include the exterior, common areas, and all rental units. The town hall will take place from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday, May 12th in the third floor meeting room at Wicked Warren's 119 West 3rd Street, Jamestown. Elevator access is available when entering the venue. For more information, email reiajamestown@yahoo.com. Of national note, Rudy Giuliani is breathing on his own while hospitalized. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is breathing on his own after being hospitalized with pneumonia and placed on a ventilator, his spokesman said on Monday. Giuliani, 81, remains in critical but stable condition at a Florida hospital and is being monitored as a precautionary measure, spokesman Ted Goodman said. Goodman said Giuliani's condition was exacerbated by restrictive airway disease attributed to his exposure to dust and toxins from the September 11, 2001 attack on the World Trade Center. Giuliani's hospitalization near Palm Beach, Florida, came after he was heard coughing Friday on his nightly online talk show and hoarsely told viewers that his voice was a little under the weather. This condition adds to complications to any respiratory illness, and the virus quickly overwhelmed his body, requiring mechanical ventilation to maintain adequate oxygen and stabilize his condition, Goodman said. The following are articles from the opinion page from the Jamestown Post-Journal on May 5th. Today in history. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, the 125th day of 2026. There are 240 days left in the year. In 1961, astronaut Alan B. Shepard Jr. became America's first space traveler as he made a 15-minute suborbital flight aboard Mercury 7 capsule Freedom 7. Also on this date, in 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte, 51, died in exile in the South Atlantic island of St. Helena. In 1862, Mexican troops repelled French attacks on the city of Pueblo de Los Angeles in the Battle of Puebla, also known as the Battle of Cinco de Mayo. In 1925, high school teacher John T. Scopes was charged in Tennessee with violating a state law that prohibited teaching of the theory of evolution. Scopes was later found guilty, but his conviction was later set aside. In 1945, the only fatal attack on the U.S. mainland during World War II happened. A Japanese balloon bomb exploded on Gerhardt Mountain in Oregon, killing a pregnant woman and 5 children. As mentioned earlier, in 1973, Secretariat won the Kentucky Derby, the first of his Triple Crown victories in a time of 1 minute 59.4 seconds, a record that still stands. In 1981, Irish Republican Army militant Bobby Sands died at age 27 at the Maze prison in Northern Ireland on the 66th day of a hunger strike. In 1994, American singer Michael Fay was caned at a Singaporean prison for vandalism a day after his sentence was reduced from 6 lashes to 4 in response to an appeal by President Bill Clinton. In 2016, Lonnie Franklin Jr. was convicted of 10 counts of murder in the grim sleeper serial killings in Los Angeles that targeted poor, young black women over 2 decades. Today's birthdays: actor Lance Henriksen is 86, comedian actor Michael Palin is 83, actor Richard E. Grant is 69, R&B singer Raheem DeVaughn is 51, actor Vincent Kartheiser is 47, actor Danielle Fishel is 45, actor Henry Cavill is 43, singer-songwriter Adele is 38, R&B singer Chris Brown is 37, tennis player Arna Sabalenka is 28, Olympic figure skating gold medalist Nathan Chen is 27, tennis player Carlos Alcaraz is 23, and actor Jenna Davis is 22. Question of the day: do you drink tap water? The survey finds that 76% of the respondents said yes, they do, while 24% said they do not drink tap water. Continuing on the opinion page, Veronica Dogugi, the marriage gap is wreaking havoc. The most consequential inequality in America is not the wealth gap or the wage gap. It may not be the racial opportunity gap. The marriage gap is wreaking havoc. And unfortunately, it's the gap that gets the least attention. I am a libertarian. I don't care whom or if you marry. Yet I'm reminded that there is a problem by a new report from the American Enterprise Institute, edited by Kevin Corneth and Scott Winship. Land of Opportunity: Advancing the American Dream covers a broad range of challenges facing the country today, from the cost of living and workforce and development to education, crime, and the erosion of community life. The authors are not cultural warriors. They are empirical economists, but among their most important findings are those dealing with the collapse of the American family and what the government has done to accelerate it. From economist Robert Verbruggen's chapter on erosion of married parenthood, I learned that in the mid-20th century, only 1 in 20 children were born out of wedlock. Now it is 2 in 5. I also learned that America has the world's highest rate of children living in single-parent households, 23% in the U.S. against an international norm of 7%. Drawing on the National Longitudinal Survey of Youth, Van Bruggen shows that 40% of millennials from intact 2-parent families graduated from college and that 77% achieved middle-class incomes or higher. Among those who didn't grow up in intact families, only 17% graduated from college and just 57% reached middle class incomes. The latter are also roughly twice as likely to be incarcerated even after controlling for their other socioeconomic factors. The damage doesn't stop at the front door. Research using tax return data suggests that neighborhoods with high rates of single parenthood cultivate lower social mobility, including among kids who themselves are not raised by single parents, Van Bruggen said. This is a rather bipartisan idea at this point. In 2013 review of the relevant research, Princeton University sociologist Sarah McLanahan and co-authors found that studies using more rigorous designs continue to find negative effects of father absence on offspring well-being. Economist Melissa Carney's work shows that marriage protects against poverty among all races. In fact, marrying parents, regardless of race and education, suffer significantly less poverty than unmarried mothers. This collapse in family stability is not happening evenly. Winship and O'Rourke found that while marital birth rates dropped by 29 points overall from 1970 to 2018, they fell by 47 points for the bottom educated quintile and by just 6 points from the top. Consistent with that divide from early 1960s to the late 2010s, marriage rates fell by roughly 46 percentage points for the least educated young women, compared with about 17 points for the most educated, leaving those least able to bear the cost of single parenthood the most likely to experience. Marriage is clearly a singularly important institution for raising children and for income mobility. Still, I don't view government efforts to tilt the scale towards marriage favorably. I am also firmly opposed when the government puts its thumb on the scale against marriage. Unfortunately, Verbruggen marshals evidence showing there is a lot of that going on. A couple with 2 kids, with each parent earning $30,000, receives about $5,000 in earned income tax credit benefits if they remain unmarried. They lose all of those benefits if they marry. That is a tax on marriage. Medicaid thresholds, housing vouchers, and SNAP benefits all phase out in ways that punish couples who combined households and incomes. Verbruggen cites a Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta estimate showing that 7.5% more low-income women with kids who would be married by age 35 if they were not penalized for doing so. You cannot simultaneously believe that family structure doesn't matter and that single-parent disadvantage is a crisis, or that children's outcomes are shaped by economic conditions and that it's irrelevant whether 2 committed adults are in the picture or one parent cycles through unstable relationships. Careful researchers, including those attempting to debunk the marriage effect, keep finding it. My conservative friends focus on redesigning America's $1 trillion safety net to reduce the marriage penalty. But the harder question, the one almost no one asks, is whether that safety net's existence changes the marriage calculus in ways no redesign can fully fix. If the government reliably tries to replace the economic function of a spouse, more people will rationally choose not to marry. Acknowledging this doesn't require abandoning people in genuine need, nor does it require overcorrecting and incentivizing women to live in abusive unions. It does, however, require admitting that every dollar of well-intentioned assistance comes with a behavioral price tag that we've largely refused to count. Sometimes the most compassionate long-term answer is to remove the marriage penalty in welfare programs. Sometimes it's to have a smaller program or no program at all. We will never know until we honestly ask the question. Veronica de Riguri, is the George Gibbs Chair of Political Economy and Senior Research Fellow at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Continuing in the opinion section, Jeff Robbins writes, Kash Patel files a Lulu of a lawsuit. For Americans who have watched FBI Director Kash Patel slash beer with the U.S. Olympic hockey team, proclaim that the FBI had Charlie Kirk's murderer in custody only to have to say, never mind, and stand glassy-eyed at press conferences looking somewhere between an unhappy participant in a police lineup and an anesthetized deer in headlights, the news that Patel has sued The Atlantic, claiming it has libeled him by calling him erratic, triggered the same simultaneous question. Isn't truth a complete defense to a libel suit? It is, of course, and the word erratic to describe Kash Patel seems not only understated, but like the mother of all euphemisms. Entitled The FBI Director is MIA, the allegedly libelous Atlantic article asserted that Patel has engaged not only in erratic behavior, but excessive drinking and unexplained absences. Patel responded that the article is not only untrue, but replete with false and obviously fabricated allegations designed to destroy his reputation and drive him from office. Patel's lawsuit seems to collapse at one point or another. For starters, as a public official, Patel would have to adduce clear and convincing evidence that the magazine has published factual falsehoods, either knowing they were false or, at a minimum, in reckless disregard of their falsity. Unless Atlantic journalist Sarah Fitzpatrick is lying through her teeth and her editors were hallucinating while reviewing her work, he is unlikely to meet that difficult standard. I stand by every word of this report, Fitzpatrick says. We were very diligent. We were very careful. I went through multiple levels of editing, review, care. According to Fitzpatrick, she spoke to more than 24 people about Patel's conduct, including current and former FBI officials, staff at law enforcement agencies, hospitality industry workers, members of Congress, political operatives, lobbyists, and former advisors. That's a lot of sources. Moreover, Fitzpatrick says, since the article was published, I have been inundated by additional sourcing going up to the highest levels of government, thanking us for doing the work, providing additional corroborating information. Inundated by additional sources is one of those phrases you don't enjoy hearing if you are a lawyer representing a plaintiff in a defamation case. According to Fitzpatrick, the sources told her that Patel tended to conspicuous inebriation and that he was known to drink to the point of obvious intoxication. If true, that would make Patel and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth the national security establishment's Bonnie and Clyde of alcohol abuse. If even a meaningful fraction of the evidence the Atlantic claims to have bears out, a trial about Patel's conduct would constitute a most unwelcome edition of This Is Your Life, one which President Donald Trump is unlikely to permit. Look to Trump to force Patel to walk the plank long before then and join Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, and Lori Chavez de Renner in the band of Trump cabinet members jettisoned by the boss because they had grown too toxic even for him. Of course, in the unlikely event that Patel's case ever reaches a jury, that would await him would be unpleasant. He filed the case in federal court in Washington, D.C., where the jury pool is not exactly Trump country. 90% of the district's voters pulled the lever for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. Trump received 6.5% of the vote. Patel does have a valuable tool in his toolbox, however. fear. There's a reason that the Atlantic sources insisted on being quoted anonymously. Patel has shown a wholly unprecedented willingness and enthusiasm even for using the FBI's immense power to intimidate, threaten, and yes, retaliate against those he or the president perceives as political enemies. The New York Times recently reported that the FBI conducted an investigation of one of its journalists who had reported on Patel's girlfriend and the unusual deployment of FBI resources for her benefit. Whether it's retaliation by the FBI or others in the administration, sources cannot relish the risk of adverse consequences for their testimony about Patel's behavior. But it appears that a whole lot of sources would have to go dry for Patel's suit to survive. What seems likely is the leader of the world's most prominent law enforcement agency is on the path to embarrassing himself again. Robbins' latest book, Notes from the Brink, a collection of columns and policy at home and abroad, is available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, and Google Play. Robbins, a former assistant United States attorney and United States delegate to the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, was chief counsel for the minority of the United States Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, an attorney specializing in the First Amendment and a longtime columnist. He writes on politics, national security, human rights, and the Middle East. Here are some brief regional notes. Randolph School to host budget hearing on May 12th. The Randolph Central School District Board of Education will hold a public budget hearing followed by a regular meeting on Tuesday, May 12th at 6 p.m. in the high school library. The public is welcome to attend. The Red Cross Blood Drive is May 15th at the Resource Center. The American Red Cross will host a blood drive from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. May 15th at the Resource Center, 200 Dunham Avenue, Celeron. To make an appointment or for more information, download the American Red Cross Blood Donor app. Visit redcross-blood.org or call 1-800-733-2767 or enable the blood donor skill on any Alexa Echo device to make an appointment or for more information. All blood types are needed to ensure a reliable supply of patients. A blood donor card or a driver's license or 2 other forms of identification are required at check-in. Individuals who are 17 years of age in most states, 16 with parental consent are allowed by state law. Must weigh at least 110 pounds, are in generally good health, may be eligible to donate blood. High school students and other donors 16 years of age and younger also have to meet certain height and weight requirements. Master Gardener's plant sale is May 16th at JCC. The Chautauqua County Master Gardeners will host its annual native plant sale at Jamestown Community College from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. May 16th in the college's Science Center. The Master Gardeners will be selling perennials, annuals, vegetables, herbs, and books. The Master Gardeners will also offer free soil pH testing all day. Those who want a test done should drop off their soil sample in a small plastic bag clearly labeled with the person's name, and testing will be done while the person shops. Money raised from the plant sale goes back into supporting the local Master Gardener organization and outreach efforts. For more information, reach out to Eliza Hensel, Natural Resources Educator at EMH275 at cornell.edu or call 716-664-9502 extension 220 or email chautauquaag@cornell.edu. Panama Community Cleanup is scheduled for May 16th. A community cleanup day in the village of Panama is scheduled for May 16th at 9 a.m. with a rain date of May 23rd. Volunteers will gather in the Panama Methodist Church parking lot and set out on foot and by car to get out into the community to clean up streets and surrounding roads in the Panama community. Work gloves, garbage bags, and reflective vests will be provided. Boots and comfortable clothing are suggested as the group will get off the shoulders of the road and into ditches, fields, and culverts. Light refreshments, water, coffee, and hot chocolate will be provided in the church cafe. All are welcome to participate. For more information, contact George Anderson at 716-782-3252. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The Board of Public Utilities has received a positive report. All 5 of the Board of Public Utilities divisions shows positive financial results according to the organization's recently completed 2025 audit. BPU board members recently received an audit from BWB Kevin Carr, Finance and Customs Account Manager, introduced Dana Eisman with BWB, who then presented the audit. Eisman began with some of the reports and letters issued from the audit, including the independent auditor's report. This is where we provide an opinion as to whether or not we feel the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with the standards. So I'm happy to say we are issuing an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of opinion you can receive when you have an audit. So really great job to Kevin and his team and everyone involved. Eisman went over some financial highlights for each BPU division, starting with electric. For revenues and expenditures, Eisman showed a basic chart and reported in the electric division there has been 2 positive years back to back. An increase has been seen in revenues, and expenditures are up as well. For the water division, Eisman said for 2024 and 2025, the division was right about breaking even. In the division's chart, she pointed out a significant outlier in 2022 when a grant was received by BPU. The wastewater division reported a positive year for 2025, and Eisman noted wastewater expenses have been relatively flat since 2023. For 2025 in the solid waste division, the BPU saw a net surplus of $500,000 compared to the $160,000 surplus the year before. This is mostly related to a grant that BPU was able to obtain that was used to purchase vehicles. For the last division, District Heat, the BPU saw a net surplus of $300,000 compared to $200,000 the year before, again showing what Eisman called 2 decent years back to back. Eisman then moved into audit highlights, including items such as the governance letter that gets sent out. The governance letter is the letter sent out to those in charge of governing in connection to the audit, Eisman said. The letter also includes a summary of things included in the audit. The last letter sent out in the management letter, which Eisman said is a listing of recommendations for potential improvements that could be made after the audit. A lot of these comments were also reported on last year. Ultimately, it's management's decision. We'll continue to evaluate, and they'll make the determination whether these items you want to implement. The following are articles on the area and national scene. Endangered whale protections may be delayed to 2035 under a Trump-backed plan. Portland, Maine. For roughly 380 right whales left in the North Atlantic, which can die after getting tangled in fishing ropes or hit by ships, the Trump administration said this month it wants to delay new protections by almost a decade in favor of commercial fishing interests. The sleek black whales, which weigh as much as a mid-sized bulldozer, are critically endangered, and their numbers have declined sharply in recent decades. Environmental groups say reducing deaths and injuries caused by people is essential to the species' recovery. The whales give birth off Florida and Georgia before making a long migration north to feed off New England and Canada. Protected areas of ocean aid them on their journey, but scientists have said they have strayed from those zones in recent years in search of food as the oceans warm. A proposal by U.S. Representative Jared Golden, a Democrat from Maine, would push back new federal protections for the right whales to 2035 and allow time to craft regulations that are less burdensome to the fishing industry. The White House released a memo Friday saying it strongly supports the plan and that President Donald Trump's senior advisors would recommend he sign it into law if it passes Congress. The proposal comes as the government already paused any new federal rules about right whales until 2028. According to Golden, Maine's iconic lobster industry would have been crushed by the now paused regulations, which he said were based on flawed science and hypothetical scenarios rather than reality on the water. A longer delay would give the government time to get science right about threats to whales, Golden said in a statement Friday. The U.S. lobster and crab fishing industries are worth hundreds of millions of dollars at the docks. The legislation is critical to ensuring the long-term stability of American fisheries for generations to come, said John Druen, Vice President of the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association. Environmental groups like California-based In Defense of Animals have pushed back against efforts to weaken rail protection. They cite how the whale's population fell by a quarter from 2010 to 2020, and recent years of recovery have been slow. Some signs about the whale's population have been encouraging. This year's birthing season produced 23 mother-calf pairs, the most since 2009, the New England Aquarium said in a statement. The whale, which has been federally protected for more than 50 years, remains critically endangered, the aquarium said. They were once abundant off the East Coast, but they were decimated during the era of commercial whaling. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, tribes are suing to halt exploratory drilling in the Black Hills near their sacred ceremonial site. 9 Native American tribes in South Dakota, North Dakota, and Nebraska are suing the federal government in a bid to stop exploratory drilling for graphite near a sacred site in the Black Hills. A small group of opponents has been demonstrating at the drilling location and at the mining company's headquarters in what they call a land defense effort since they learned ground was broken on the drilling project in late April. Tribes filed their federal lawsuit Thursday in South Dakota against the U.S. Forest Service and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, alleging the agencies violated federal law by greenlighting a project near a site called Pislah, a meadow in the central Black Hills used for tribal ceremonies, prayer, youth camps year-round. Buffalo regularly graze at the site, the suit said, adding the project poses a threat to wildlife. Graphite has many industrial uses including batteries, lubricants, certain auto parts, and in blast furnaces, according to the website of the European Carbon and Graphite Association. The project is the latest point of tension between tribes and mining interests in the lush, pine, and spruce-covered Black Hills, which encompass over 1.2 million acres. That's 485,000 hectares, rising from the Great Plains in southwest South Dakota and extending into Wyoming. The region is a yearly destination for millions of tourists boating such attractions as Mount Rushmore and wildlife-filled state parks. Yet for even longer it has been sacred to Sioux tribes who call the area Hisapa and consider it the heart of everything that is, according to the complaint. Some of the landscape was altered by an 1870s gold rush that displaced Native Americans, and more recently a new crop of miners driven by rising gold prices have sought to return to the landscape. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie granted the Sioux Nation's right to the Black Hills, but the U.S. broke the treaty after gold was discovered. Though the Supreme Court ruled the Sioux were owed compensation, they have not accepted it and consider it unceded territory. The complaint said the project by Rapid City-based mining company Pete Lean and Sons would impact the use of Pislah for traditional, cultural, and religious purposes, while the tribes and the Forest Service did not consult with the tribes before approving the project. Tribes bought parts of Pislah in 2012, 2015, and 2018, and an agreement between the tribes and the Forest Service established a 2-mile or 3-kilometer buffer zone on public lands around the site, according to the complaint. Police search for suspects in Oklahoma shooting that sent at least 18 people to hospitals. Authorities in Oklahoma were looking for suspects Monday in a weekend shooting at an unsanctioned lakeside party packed with young adults that left at least 23 people injured, some critically, according to police and hospital officials. It wasn't clear how many of the injured had suffered gunshot wounds, according to a statement released by police Monday. No arrests had been made. The shooting broke out Sunday night during a party near a campground at Arcadia Lake, a popular swimming and boating spot in Edmond, just outside Oklahoma City, said Edmond police spokesperson Emily Ward. At least 18 people were treated at hospitals in Oklahoma City area. One healthcare system said the victims it treated ranged in age from 16 to 30. It said 3 people were in critical condition and 4 were listed as serious. Jason Hearn told ABC News that he was nearby when the shooting started. He saw people who had been shot in the legs and one young woman with a head wound who was still breathing. These kids came out to have a probably good time, and for this to break out, I know that wasn't what they expected, and it's just tragic. Police in Edmond said Monday that the party was not permitted or a reserved gathering and had been advertised across social media, drawing a large crowd of mostly young adults from across the Oklahoma City area. Here is your local forecast. Today, 90% chance of showers with storms possible after 2 p.m. and a high around 66. 90% chance of showers overnight with a low around 45. Wednesday, mostly cloudy with rain likely and a high near 53. Mostly cloudy overnight with a low around 37 and a slight chance of showers. For Thursday, partly sunny with a chance of rain, high near 52. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from recent issues of the Jamestown Post-Journal. We read from the Jamestown Post-Journal every Saturday at 6 p.m. Your reader has been Dave. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Niagara Falls Review. At 8 o'clock, we have Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal. And at 9 o'clock, we have Sports Illustrated. Stay with us for these readings and more. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.